The social entrepreneurs are really good at coming up with an idea that has a strong social mission. They want to help society. They define themselves that way. They have some objectives around that, and they set up their business model and their strategy that they hope will help them achieve that. But then we start seeing this disconnect happen here when it comes to evaluating their activities. So instead of looking at whether they're achieving their mission, they just start thinking about, is my business model growing? And this is where they start getting caught up in this sort of whirlpool of adjustment that instead of looking at, can I have a bigger impact, they look at, can I have a bigger business? So yeah, so a lot of people when we're talking about social entrepreneurship sort of cite microfinance as one of the great examples. So this was this fee-for-service model. He's called himself banker to the poor. What he was doing was working with borrowing groups, cooperatives of local women in Bangladesh, providing very small loans, sort of, think $25, $50, $100 to help with micro-enterprise activities. And the real innovation in many respects was using these borrowing groups and relying on social capital as opposed to traditional collateral to secure the loans. So these people didn't have any assets that they could use to get access to this type of funding. So basically if one person defaulted, the group would make up the rest of the loans. But that's one example there. So we might take this example of microfinance that we've spoken about. What do you think the mission of microfinance might be? I guess it's meant to be this answer of bringing people out of poverty or helping them bring themselves out of poverty. So for social entrepreneurs, if mission is key, we want to see if we're actually having an impact on the social problem we're trying to solve. Okay? We don't just want to see if we're growing our business model. And that's what we're doing before. We're saying, all right, I've got this money, I'm going to make some loans to poor people. I'm going to look at the more loans, larger loans, higher loan repayment rates. Yes, as you've said here, that's going to show that my microfinance institution is a success. But there's a huge leap here to suggesting that the microenterprise itself is being successful and these people are being alleviated out of poverty. So this is what Grameen Bank was doing, which is why I think we'd start talking about it as more than just a financial institution, but as a social enterprise. So they were looking at whether they were actually having an impact on poverty alleviation. So looking at whether the families are living in a house with a roof and everyone having their own bed, whether people have access to clean drinking water, all children of school age are in education, do people have additional sources of income? We need that business training and expertise. We need that financial training and expertise. It's more than just having access to funds. And so this is what you see happening when we start thinking about these other indicators and we start thinking about our actual mission. We see a shift to a more client-centred approach to actually see if we can come up with some micro-enterprises that are successful. And we have to start doing other things. We have to start providing finance expertise and education, providing business expertise and training, links to mentors, supporting people, building a value chain within a community. And then also thinking about the broader infrastructure issues, so access to healthcare, education, and other social services. And so hopefully with all of these things, we can start seeing micro-enterprises making a profit, HDI indices going up, and that hopefully leading to poverty alleviation. So that centrality of mission and paying attention to it is key. I think that's the key thing I want to leave you guys on, is just mission being central to social entrepreneurship, and it really being the key distinguishing factor between our social entrepreneurs and our commercial or corporate entrepreneurs. Thanks.
Following on from mission, our mission is around cultural integration in Australia. So 2,000 migrants flying a week into Australia. We've got a 40,000-year-old culture here in Australia. And how do we kind of build a cohesive and multicultural society in the best possible way? So that's kind of what our organisation works on, and we do it through sport, music and arts. So essentially we're community engagement specialists, so we work with cultural communities. We help organisations reach those cultural communities, and we help cultural communities in Australia reach organisations. So apart from community engagement, doing community engagement as part of our services, research is another thing. So kind of building more of the knowledge base around this and the evidence base, and you would have seen the model that Jarrod used over there, like an impact model. So kind of looking at measuring some of these initiatives. How are we achieving? Are we tracking on that? And a relatively new area which we've kind of focused more in on is marketing services. So we're finding this kind of connection between community engagement and marketing, and that's where our model starts to commercialise, because we can go out to different brands, different commercial entities, or even government, for example, and say we can reach the communities that you want to reach. Empowering communities and leaders. So I noticed that the not-for-profits in our space were just getting government funding and handing money out to these communities, whereas we had a real value on actually empowering them, just kind of sitting back and kind of empowering those communities and allowing communities to participate in their activities. And a couple of examples, so I should give you a few examples of the kinds of projects we do. We work a lot with communities and use football as an example. The Somali community were having a lot of issues with police a number of years ago in Melbourne. They approached the council and said, we want to do something, we want to keep our youth engaged. The council came to us and said, what can you do? So we essentially mentored this committee for 3 years, and after 3 years, it's the largest gathering of Somalis in Australia. There's a youth team that travels to Brazil to play, and they play in Spain. So it was a success story, and one of the committee members was actually Australian of the Year as well. What is your cause? Why are you doing what you're doing? And that leads into what is your vision. And then the next stage of that is actually to clearly identify what that vision is. So as an example, a corporate example is Microsoft. When they started, they were a software company, but they said their vision was that everybody in the world has a computer on their desk. Because they knew if the computer's there, it's going to need software to run. Who are you? And how do you connect with your cause? How do you connect with your vision? And I think this is really important for a social organisation, because often the driving force is something that's happened in your life or around people that you know. What is your enterprise? What are your services? What are you actually doing? And what part of the cause are you tackling? So that big poverty alleviation at the end, microfinance is one element and one sector of that. Who are your customers? This is a really big one. I was on the School for Social Entrepreneurs, and a lot of people would just kind of loosely say who their customers were or their stakeholders. So I'd ask someone, they say, oh, corporates. I was like, okay. What kind of corporates? What size of corporates? What sector? What area within a corporate? Is it the HR division? Is it the leadership team? Is it corporate social responsibility? Is it your marketing and sponsorship team? Which area? So be very specific about which area, because they all have different challenges, and ideally your product or service has to solve a problem for them. Who else is doing something in your space, and what gap are you actually tending to? What is your business model? Where are your dollars actually coming from? Even if you're a not-for-profit, you still need to work out where your dollars are coming from. We had an example where we were charging the elite clubs like the Western Sydney Wanderers, and we were charging them, but we actually realised if we partner with them, they'll give us tickets to games, and if we have tickets to games, we're able to reach the community. So we changed our model as a result. So you've constantly got to be thinking about where's the dollars coming from, and are there more innovative ways? Does it make commercial sense? So what are your rates? Are you charging for your product? Does it cover your costs? This is probably a bit more of a sticking point for social enterprises, because there may be premiums, or there may be reasons why they're more expensive. Who else is doing what you're proposing, but in a different sector? So I'd even encourage looking at a totally different sector, but just looking at similar models. So I can look in another area in environmental sustainability, for example, and look at a few examples and learn lessons of what they're doing and apply to our sector.
Thank you.
So my name's Tom. I'm the founder and co-founder, I should say, and CEO of StartSomeGood.com. For true social entrepreneurship, you do have to start with the mission first. And the first is, what is that you really care about? Thinking into the future, 20 or 30 years, what is the future that you want to experience? Your vision is the future that you're trying to create. Your mission is how you will contribute to that future. And so your mission is, which part of that do you take on? What are you prepared to do? And for the social entrepreneurs, that's all the business model is. It's the ability to create change in the long run. To me, the more boring one, but perhaps the more common one, is the redistributive social enterprise. So it's a social enterprise that engages in a business activity, makes a profit, and redirects that profit. So Thank You Group, if you've come across Thank You Water, they don't create any positive social impacts through their actual business. And so in some ways, while they look like, they're a very cutting edge organisational type, they're actually a very traditional thing as well, which is business people doing well and donating their money. They've just baked that in. So instead of being the private decision of the business person after the fact, it's a core part of their brand, a core part of their offer to the market, is that you can buy this bottled water or this bottled water, but if you buy this one, you're also helping development projects in the developing world. And then the one beyond that is the business that actually creates a positive social impact through its business operations. And these are the ones that I think are the most exciting in general. If you can design a business that makes its profit in a way that also creates, in the same way that it creates a social impact, it's also creating its profit. And there's a genuine alignment within those things. You're not purchasing social impact somewhere else in the way that the redistributive ones are. You're actually creating that yourself. And so the more you do of whatever it is you're doing, the more social impact is created, irrespective of what you then do with your profits. And so we believe that social entrepreneurs need 3 types of capital to succeed. So we know that social entrepreneurs need intellectual, financial, and relational capital to succeed. So intellectual capital is knowing how to do things or accessing skilled, smart people who know how to do those things for you. So the Genesis program very obviously focused on intellectual capital, teaching and sharing around what needs to be done. Financial capital is the obvious thing, money to spend on things that need money. And relational capital is often the slightly invisible one, but perhaps the most crucial. It's the thing that helps you not burn out. It's a community who cares about the work you're doing, who understands the journey you're on, and is there to support you through that journey. And that's often other entrepreneurs. Anyway, I must be out of time, so I'll leave it up there. Thanks, guys.